James Grande, welcome into the Better Baseball MLB DFS Playbook live show here, recording for Thursday's 4-game main slate on DraftKings here today, James. We have a kickoff at 7:05 on DraftKings. We have a start time of 6:05 over on FanDuel here this evening. So a little bit of a split slate of FanDuel, including the Tigers-Phillies game into that one here, while we have DraftKings going with Houston, Toronto, Boston, Cleveland, Mets, Atlanta, and Chicago, LA for their slate. No Yankees, White Sox being accounted for on DraftKings due to their doubleheader that they played today, which is unfortunate. I don't know why they can't just count those players, because we could have used the player pool, but nonetheless, we have 4 games here on DraftKings to talk about tonight.
Yeah, that's been their normal approach, right? Years past, they don't go with the doubleheader. I think there's a lot of
Back-end technical work, probably.
Yeah, probably. I mean, coming from the projection side of things as well, there is surely a lot of back-end technical stuff that needs to be worked on when it comes to doubleheaders. So I understand. Also, kind of the uncertainty with who's actually playing and who's actually pitching, and people getting called up to pitch sometimes. It's always, doubleheaders are always kind of tricky. We don't know when the game's going to start usually. There's a lot that goes into doubleheader, so I understand it. I don't know why DraftKings and FanDuel just can't, more importantly, just include the same amount of games. That's been our kind of beef with them. That I just read Mark's comment, which we can get to in a little bit, he asked us to, but it was funny. He's a terrible person, Mark, so we'll get there in a little bit.
We won't talk about that, but you can Google it.
Yeah, you can Google it. Not a good person. Hope he does terrible tonight. But yeah, I mean, I wish we could just get on the same slate, because it would be nice to have Zach Wheeler and the Phillies on the slate against a guy making his major league debut, or not have them at all on either slate, right? Not have, especially for you, you did the MLB DFS playbook over on FantasyAlarm.com today, where oh, let me do my core plays for both slates because they're the same amount. Wait, no, they're not. And then you have an extra game. It's just kind of, and like you said, we deal with the hour-long stuff all the time. The late night hammer is 2 hours after the Mets game, but now it's the first game of the night is starting at 6:05. The last game, 9:38. That's kind of not great, Bob.
Yep. I agree with you there 100%. James, before we get into tonight's thing, I want to let everybody know that right now, if you're not yet a member of the Fantasy Alarm family, you can join up. FantasyAlarm.com/all-pro. Promo code MLB50 will get you 50% off the first 6 months there. You get access to all of our MLB DFS content, NBA DFS, NHL, PGA, MMA, NASCAR DFS, you name it, we cover it here, and it's all included with the All-Pro subscription package. Plus, NFL season is right around the corner. Our NFL Draft Guide is launching within the next coming weeks. You get access to that as well if you are a member of the All-Pro subscription package there. And you get access to our premium Discord channel where you can talk to myself, James Grande, Howard Bender, Andrew Cooper, Justin Fensterman, Colby Conway, Justin Vreeland, you name them, Dan Malin, Matt Sells, the whole crew. We're all in there every day answering your lineup questions, answering your seasonal questions, and getting you ready for the upcoming fantasy football season. So no better time than now to join up today and get that 50% off first 6 months promo code with MLB50. James, we had a fire night last night. Flirted with a takedown for a little bit there. Jaime Barria, unfortunately, got an early pull and gave up a couple of runs. I was sitting right around the top 10 in the $4.20 max last night. Ended up finishing 30th. I know you had a pretty high scoring. I know Mark in chat had a really good night last night with some high scoring lineups. We basically had an hour live stream yesterday where we almost got nothing wrong. Everything that we said, from Benson to being a favorite value play, to Ellie with a monster first home run for him, John Gray threw a complete game loss for us here. Everything that we basically touted yesterday came through. Yordan was my home run call. He homered. Your home run call thing homered as well. It was just a big night all around.
No, Ohtani didn't, but he had a double and 2 stolen bases.
That's so okay. He had enough fantasy points for a home run.
He covered the home run with the double and the 2 stolen bases. But yeah, we had, definitely a good night. Justin Vreeland had a fantastic
Fire
playbook.
playbook. Yeah,
Yeah,
reading
fire
the fire
playbook
playbook.
yesterday. He also touted his lineups in chat. It was a good night. It was one of the better nights I think that we've had collectively, and I think you get more data throughout the year. You just have more things to look at and say, hey, that we like that guy because of this. And
Hmm.
like the beginning of the year when it's 20, 30, 40 plate appearance sample sizes, I mean, Michael Conforto was hitting 100 in the first year. He just hit his 13th home run today. Like,
Yeah.
because he's hit 10 in the last month for a guy who didn't play baseball for the last year and a half. It's, the more that's why I always say like BVP isn't my favorite thing because it's always such a small sample that like
Yeah.
there's so many random factors on any given day. Whereas like you start getting 100 to 150 to 200 plate appearance samples, and you start getting data that is extremely relevant, extremely easy to run with. So yeah, I think we're really hitting our stride here, John, as we head into the dog months of the dog days of summer. No,
Yeah.
I guess that's
Yeah.
August, but heading into summer, I'll just
Yeah.
say we'll exclude the dog days part and just heading into the summer. But smaller slate here. Yesterday was a nice 9 gamer after the. Is anything official? I know like the Philly and Detroit lineups are out. I know we're only an hour away. I guess that game's going to play. I know
Yeah.
they expected both games to play for the Yankees today.
Yeah.
Nothing
Much
of
better air quality today
okay,
than they had yesterday in those
okay.
games.
Okay. Just making sure because I know I saw Philly release their lineup. I saw Detroit release their lineup. But we also saw teams release their lineups yesterday, and then the games were just like, no, we're just gonna cancel this because it looks like the world's ending out here.
Yeah, I again, yeah, very weird imagery yesterday, given the orange fog smoke hue that was encountering the Northeast there. Because we do have that 6 o'clock game starting. I know some of our listeners, watchers, followers here do play on FanDuel. I just want to get your take on Zach Wheeler. The last time Wheeler took the mound was the day I said, don't play him.
Yep.
Washington is hitting righties. This could be a bad spot for him. He goes out there 3 2/3, 8 hits allowed, 7 earned runs. Now it's a bounce back spot for him. He's got Detroit. Let's talk a little bit about this Philly Detroit game for those who are playing in that game's on their slate.
Yeah, I mean, this is different than the Washington start. You mentioned it then that everything kind of was coming together for Washington's offense, and Wheeler hadn't been great. So things just lined up for them pretty well. Things do not line up well for Detroit. They're missing their best player in Riley Green. They're missing some of their best lefty bats overall. I mean, they signed, they don't have Austin Meadows. They don't have Riley Green. Like, they're missing a lot of what they do offensively. And they're a terrible offense
Yeah.
against right handed pitching. They're a bad offense against lefties, but 24.5% strikeout rate against righties. That's the sixth highest rate. We've seen Philly with Aaron Nola, 13 strikeouts, Taijuan Walker with 8 strikeouts against them in back to back starts. They have a 628 team OPS that is dead last, like significantly lower than anyone else, worse than Cleveland, significantly lower than Cleveland, a team that we've picked on time
A
and
lot.
time again this
Yeah.
year. And they're worse than them. So this is a definite bounce back spot for Zach Wheeler. His strikeout prop 8.5, John, I found a little like too high. Like if we were talking about in the prop world, like that's
Yeah. It's definitely boosted due to the opponent for
to the
sure.
opponent. Yep,
Because Wheeler can certainly get there, but
and
that's a ceiling. You're looking at a ceiling strikeout game for
correct.
Wheeler here against Detroit. You mentioned dead last in OPS. They're last in ISO, or second to last in ISO. Only Cleveland has the worst ISO. But they're last in WOBA, all across the board, basically, in offensive categories against right-handed pitching on the year. So Wheeler, again, all up, all board. Go ahead, put him in your lineup if you're playing that slate. And then conversely, on the other side, you have Tyler Holton starting a lefty for him for Detroit here. We know Philly has a lot of lefty bats in their lineup, but does that hold you off of anybody for them?
Not really. Kyle Schwarber has some of the best home run odds of the day of in any game. that included all the early windows too. Trey Turner's seemingly come alive, since getting moved down to the 4 hole, and the switch with Castellanos has worked because Castellanos has raked against left-handed pitching earlier this year. We know Bryce is, as good against lefties as he is against righties. So no, I don't think it deters me at all, especially against a guy making his major league debut here. So I would get to Philly. They're also incredibly cheap on FanDuel. Like Trey Turner, $3,000. Kyle Schwarber, $3,000. Bryce Harper, you can get a Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber, Turner stack between $3,000 and $3,600 and not even blink, because you're going to want to get to a Wheeler, Strider, Framber, right? And you
Yeah.
can probably still do that with that stack.
Yeah. Now, this is Holden's first start. He has a
first
reliever.
Sorry. First start.
Yeah. So this is his first career start. He has been pretty decent in relief for them there, but obviously different. Who knows? This is probably going to be more like a bullpen game. He hasn't been stretched out at all. So even if you do throw some of those lefties, maybe they get a turn through the lineup, and then he's out and they have a bullpen guy in there next. So I agree with you. I think you can get to pretty much anybody in Philly. I think you can definitely play Zach Wheeler tonight as one of the top pitchers if you're over on FanDuel. So, or if you're playing a showdown slate, however you're going to do, if that Philly Detroit game's on your slate tonight, that's our breakdown of that. Let's turn back to the main slate over here on DraftKings here, James, and talk about pitching. This is a weird slate because it's only 4 games, right? Again, they're not including Chicago, New York, even though it's appearing on DraftKings, not counting their stats. So we have Strider, we have Framber, we have Berrios, we have Verlander as your top 4 starters there. And they're facing one another. Framber's facing Berrios. Verlander's facing Strider. Strider's $12,000. He's the highest priced pitcher on the slate. He is also plus 105 to record a win tonight, which is one of the best win equity odds I've seen when looking at that prop here. So Atlanta coming in seemingly as a decent favorite, with Strider favored to get a win with the highest strikeout prop on the board at 8.5 here tonight as well for this main slate. So as we saw with Clayton Kershaw in the early slate when he was 60% rostered, does this feel like a slate where you got to get Strider in your lineup? Because if he does what Kershaw did, he goes for 34 whatever fantasy points, and you don't have him, you're out.
Yes. If you're playing single lines, I'd say, like, if you're playing multiple lineups, there's obviously a case to be made to pivot, right? Obviously. Like if you're playing one line single entry, that's where you're going to get massive ownership on Strider, especially. But yeah, I mean, no one on the slate, like Framber has flashed it a couple times, Verlander like once in terms of strikeout upside. Nobody has the upside that Strider has consistently. I mean, every start this year, he's had 7 or more strikeouts, and that's his low. Like 7 is his low. He's gone for 11, 12, 10, 13. Started the year with 9 or more, or 9 even, 4 straight times. Like, the Mets are also without Pete Alonso tonight after getting hit by a pitch. So, like, everything lines up. He did struggle against the Mets in the one start. He also struggled against them last year after those comments he made last year where he said they weren't all that good, and then they hit him again, and then they came into this year and they kind of hit him again. They are making improvements. No Dan Vogelbach. That's obviously a step in the right direction. Shout out to Buck Showalter for making Fantasy Alarm's brass very happy. Adam Ronis and Justin Vreeland, if you follow either of them, it is multiple tweets a day about Dan Vogelbach being in the lineup. So I'm sure today they are jumping for joy, but no Alonso. So the middle of their lineup, or at least the top half, is Alvarez, McNeil, Lindor, Beatty. Like, not exactly the most thump you could have, especially. So, yeah, I do like Strider a whole bunch. I do think you get to him at 12K. I obviously think, like you said, there is a lot of merit for him getting a win here, because when you look at Verlander's had a lot of struggles with power this year specifically. And we know the Braves are not the team you mess around with when it comes to power. ISO through the roof for right-handed bats for Atlanta, or against Verlander, and we know who Austin Riley and Ronald Acuna are at the top of that lineup. So very scary for Verlander in this in this spot. So I love Strider. And, if you're fading him, obviously getting to Framber is not a bad consolation prize either.
Yeah, I agree with you. Framber's right up there with win equity on this slate as well because Jose Barrios. Listen, Jose Barrios has been pretty good at times this year for sure. He's been really good at home this year as well. He has a 2.22 ERA in 4 starts this year at home. But lefties have done the damage against him. And as we said last night with Chris Bassett, lefties do the damage against him as well. And Yordan Alvarez did get to him there. Jose Barrios this year, 467 slug against 4 of his 7 home runs allowed to lefties, 289 batting average there. So, if Barrios can keep the ball down and navigate around Tucker and Yordan, then sure, there's a path to success for him there. But it feels like Framber is just in a better spot. Only 1 start this entire year as he allowed more than 3 earned runs. He's been the quality start machine all over again here. He's $10,400. We've talked a lot about Toronto's offense. Just feels like it just gets shut down at times. And in spots where you think they'll excel, they don't. I know if you go and look at their split stats this year against left-handed pitching, like it's really not that good. I don't know if you're looking at the same numbers that I'm looking at, but you may be surprised to know that ISO against left-handed pitching, Toronto is dead last in baseball. Isolated power against left-handed pitching. A lineup that has Vlad Guerrero, George Springer, Bo Bichette, dead last in isolated power against left-handed pitching. So that is a big indicator when they're facing one of the best shutdown lefties in the game,
in baseball.
Right?
Yep. Yeah,
so
100%.
I can't, I feel like Framber's, people may be worried, but I'm in on Framber tonight a lot as well.
Yeah, I don't know. People shouldn't be worried. First, should not be at all. I couldn't agree more with you. And the only downside is Toronto doesn't strike out against lefties at all.
Right.
They don't really strike out at all in general. But even in the starts that Framber has kind of not been great striking people out, like in the Oakland start 2 starts ago, 5 strikeouts, still got to win 6 innings, 21 fantasy points, go about your day. Like, hey, I'm Framber. I'm one of the best pitchers in the game per usual. But he has a bunch of games with high strikeouts. So I think Strider's upside still trumps Framber's ho-hum approach, just gonna be clock in, clock out with a quality start and move on. But if you can make it work, 3650 to use both guys at the top of your lineup.
Right. ISO for them over the past month, Toronto is even worse. It's 0.92 against left-handed pitching. They are just abysmal when it comes to power there against southpaws. After that, again, like you mentioned, Verlander, not really where I'm looking to go. You have Savale, you have Smiley on this slate, Reed Detmers, and then as Mark mentioned earlier, what do we know about Mitchell Dermody? Not much. Didn't pitch well at AAA. Doesn't have a great history at the major league level here either. If you go to Fantasy Alarm and check out our Vegas run totals, Cleveland, one of the higher team implied runs on the board as well. And I hate playing Cleveland. It's also unfortunate that Dermody is a lefty here as well, because a lot of the guys that we would play would be from the left side of the plate there for Cleveland. But he doesn't seem probably long for this game just in general. But when it came to me, I like Strider, I like Framber, and then I threw a dart at Reed Detmers here tonight because I like the Angels' offense. Detmers is another guy. If you're looking at Vegas odds, he has the second highest strikeout total. It's at 6.5. He's also plus 150 to get a win, which is the second best odds for a pitcher here tonight. So at $6,500, I know the Cubs overall this year have been pretty good against lefties. And even recent data against lefties, the Cubs have been okay, but still 25% strikeout rate for them during that stretch. So if you can miss bats in a pitcher's park in LA, keep that ball in the ballpark for them. There could be some upside here on a small slate.
What I do know about Mitchell Dermody, John, is that his name is Matt.
Oh,
so that's
Matt.
one thing.
Okay,
that's one thing. That's one
I was
thing
reading
that I
Mark's
do know.
comment. I was reading Mark's comment.
I know you were.
I should have known, 'cause that's
He
Mark's shtick. Calls them by the wrong
that he
first
just
name.
calls people by just
Yeah.
wrong names. Yeah, I mean he hasn't been a good pitcher. He's made 30 career appearances in the big leagues, 0 starts, and has not been good. Has a 5.6 ERA in his 30 major league appearances, and he had almost a 5 ERA at AAA this year, being stretched out as a starter. It will be noted, John, lefties hitting over 300 against him at AAA this
Yeah.
year. So just throwing that out there. Also, the Guardians, if you go and take a look at their last couple weeks, have been an offense much different than they were earlier in the year. In large part to Josh Naylor and Josh Bell and Naylor there. I love the Guardians, so yeah, they're gonna attack Germany everywhere. I think Detmers is the guy. Outside of the top names, I think you can get to Aaron Savale just with how bad Boston's offense has been. And
Sure.
Savale, returned from the IL and was pretty much stretched out. 83 pitches in his debut. He's not exactly a guy who misses a lot of bats, but Boston's offense just hasn't been good of late. They're trying new things, I guess, moving Jaron Duran back into the
Leadoff
to the
spot?
leadoff
Yeah.
spot to just kind of shake
Well, they got
things
rid of
up.
Raimel Tapia, so,
Right. They can't lead Raimel Tapia off, and you can't lead Refsnyder off without a lefty on the mound. Like
Yeah.
what can you do here? So Savali would be another one, but I think the interesting thing about Detmers here is the Cubs throw like a very right-handed heavy lineup out against
Yeah.
lefties, and
Gotta worry
by
about
that
Yan
I mean
Gomes. Yeah.
9 righties projected in their lineup tonight. I don't think we have anything official yet, but if there is something that comes across the line, Angels lineup out. Yeah, nothing for the Cubs yet. Um, he has he's kind of been a reverse splits pitcher this year, Detmers, where lefties are the ones that are giving him all the issues. He has a 27% strikeout rate against right-handed bats this year. To your point, like he misses bats. He is missing all of the righties' bats, like almost 28. If you want to round up 27.8% strikeout rate against right-handed bats this year. And we talked about it last night, why we like Jaime Barria. And I know obviously flip side of the plate, like things change
Yeah.
when you're just going from splits, but the Cubs were striking out more than anybody over that time. Like they've just kind of been a bad offense actually outside of Yan Gomes.
Right.
Like we love Christopher Morel, but no coincidence that Christopher Morel comes around and they start striking out all
Right.
this, because now their lineup includes Morel and Wisdom. Wisdom has a 41% strikeout rate against left-handed pitching this year. Like,
Yeah.
there is Detmers by far has the best strikeout upside.
He's at a 10.66 K per 9 on the year, which obviously is an elite K per 9.
Nice.
And then we talk a lot of these guys who have like low ERAs, a bit like regression numbers over on Fangraphs, and Detmers is the reverse. He's got a 5.15 ERA, a 3.62 FIP, a 4.05 xFIP, and a 4 Sierra. So again, some like positive regression coming his way. He has a ridiculous strikeout potential here. He's in a home ballpark, which should be favorable for him. And it's a small slate, and he's $6,500. So that you want to play Strider, you fit Detmers in there, and you actually have money to play with to build a lineup around. Building a lineup tonight is going to be probably a little bit difficult because you're really just keying in on a couple of offenses versus bad pitching, and then you got to take some shots on guys against, good pitching per se, right? Like probably have to play some Atlanta against Verlander, or you'll play the lefties against Barrios here. Smaller slates, cutting down your player pool when there is, a decent amount of potential pitching talent on the board.
Right. Fully agree. And I'm just looking at some samples. So over the last 3 weeks for the Cubs, against left-handed pitching, 26.5% strikeout rate, 7th highest in the league. Only a 685 team OPS. So things are really trending in the wrong direction for them as a whole offensively. And I was in on the Cubs earlier in the year, but they're just not the same offense right now. And even though they're going to likely throw 9 righties to Reed Detmers, that's not an issue because Reed Detmers, in the split that he has faced more, 176 righties versus 52 lefties, he has been significantly better in. So I welcome the Cubs to throw 9 righties against Reed Detmers because he's better as a strikeout pitcher against righties. He is better at limiting power against righties. So yeah, I love Reed Detmers. I think he's, it's not going to surprise anyone when he's very
Right.
popular. But yeah, he's definitely my favorite SP2 if you can't find a way to jam Strider and Valdez in your lineup.
Yep, I'm with you there 100%. Let's take a look. Again, we only have a couple of set lineups out here for tonight, James. Any lineups sticking out to you? Anybody in, anybody out that is unusual?
So the Angels line up a little interesting tonight,
Okay.
John. Joe Adell in the lineup for the Angels tonight, hitting 6th. Brandon Drury, cover of your playbook tonight, hitting 4th. I know
Right, you were telling me
that
not in
brings
the lineup because that would have been devastating.
that brings a happy tear to your eye, I'm
Yeah.
sure. A lot of righties in the lineup for the Angels tonight, as mentioned earlier. No Pete Alonso this evening for the Mets, so they are hitting Lindor 4th with McNeil 3rd. As I mentioned earlier, Jaron Duran back to leading off. Ref Snyder is in the lineup hitting 6th. Christian Arroyo's bad bottom half for that Red Sox
What
lineup.
you don't like Arroyo, McGuire, and Kike
TK.
Hernandez? That's
Well, and Ref Snyder 6,
I mean,
it's top half is good.
Casas again continues to be like one of the weirdest anomalies in baseball. Where if you look at his Statcast numbers, he's basically red in every contact stat. He's like top 80 percentile and everything, but he strikes out a ridiculous amount of time, so he's not making any contact, and he's hitting 5th here. So at some point, I think he turns it around, but probably probably not tonight. So yeah, listen, I agree with you. There's only a few Red Sox that I like here tonight, and it's basically the whole top half of that team. Cleveland, as you mentioned, the problem that we tend to fall into, and I know you said Dermody has struggled against lefties at the minor leagues, but they're all going to be hitting, lefties. Kwan, Jimenez, Naylor, Bell's a switch hitter. Straw a righty? Straw's a righty.
Straw's a righty. I got some for that.
Okay.
Don't worry. And we'll talk about it.
Okay. Well, let's talk about it then. Let's talk about catcher position here.
Let's talk about it. We'll talk about it. So let's talk about it.
Catcher, the obvious plays for us here are guys we always go to. I like Detmers, but it is a small slate. I don't think Detmers is going to throw a shutout. It'd be great if he does, but rare occasions it's okay to throw a hitter versus a pitcher. On a slate like today, I am fine just plugging Yan Gomes and plugging in Detmers together. And you know what? Hopefully Jan doesn't do too much damage. And just the splits there if you don't want to spend out, because like Darno versus Verlander is fine. Alvarez versus Strider, not really where I want to go. Narvaez versus Strider, not really where I'm looking to go. Wallach, I guess, against Smiley would be a play. Reese McGuire against Savali could be a play, but catcher on a 4-game slate is pretty gross.
So I do think there's some interesting pieces. I definitely think Yan Gomes is the play if you're not playing Detmers, or if you are as a one-off, it's fine on a 4-game slate. I'd probably stay away from it anything more than a 4-game slate. Like if it was, even though it's only one more game, that's probably 2 to 3 more catchers we would have had to pick from. So Darno is a little interesting tonight. So he's hitting 4th. Do we have a Braves lineup? No Braves lineup from. Oh yeah, he's hitting 4th tonight. No Sean Murphy in the lineup, and he hasn't been necessarily great against right-handed pitching. But Justin Verlander has been really bad against right-handed bats. 84 plate appearance sample, and I understand that's not huge. 205 ISO is really concerning. 333 WOBA is also really concerning. Only a 19% strikeout rate. That's 3 percentage points lower than it is against lefties. I don't love any of those numbers. Yeah, he's still getting a solid amount of ground balls, but also a 50% hard hit rate against right-handed bats. So to be maybe a little contrarian, I don't dislike the idea of getting to Darno hitting fourth, just because the whole top half of the Braves lineup is so potent. I
Well,
mean,
that's what it is.
the Braves have, I mean, really, 6 of the first 7, if you want to include Austin Riley, have a 160 ISO or better against right-handed pitching this year. And Verlander's problem because he spent time on the IL, obviously, like it's a smaller sample, has been power. Like 205 ISO against righties, not good. 172 ISO against lefties, not terrible, but still not
Yeah.
good. Like still below average. So
It was like a couple years ago
Dar-
in Houston where he gave up a bunch of home runs, but they were
lot of
they
home
were all
runs.
solo shots. So like
Yep.
it never really burned his ERA or anything like that. But yeah, I remember him giving up a ton of just solo home runs.
So I'm okay getting to Darno. Like it's obviously not the most.
Again,
I
it's a
wish,
4-game slate to your point. So it's just like there's only so many options. Reese McGuire still hitting 280 on the year. He's going to hit at the bottom of the lineup. He's had good games this season. He hits, lefty versus Savale if you want to just punt. But again, I don't want to go Kirk against Valdez. Wallach would probably be the guy, right?
yeah,
Some
he would.
power, $2,900, and we're kind of okay going against Smiley here.
I'm kind of sad Zanino's not in the lineup because those numbers from a few years ago are starting to creep in against
The
left-handed pitch.
800 OPS or 800 ISO
Yes.
rather.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he's second on the team in OPS against left-handed pitching this year. So like naturally, let's get him out of the lineup, right? That's just usually how things
Yeah,
go. I mean,
gotta get
yeah,
Gallagher in
46.
the lineup,
Yeah,
man. Half of the other
yeah,
all solo.
46% strikeout rate. So what? So what? But yeah, I think it's Wallach, and I think there is a case to be made for Darno if you're not playing young
Yep.
guys.
First base here. If we're looking at top first baseman, we definitely like Otani even against a lefty. Where are you going elsewhere though? I have Drury as the cover. He's first and second base eligible here, but on a small slate, pricing drops off quick. What's your top first baseman tonight?
You're right about Otani. Lefties have been what's given Drew Smiley the most issues this year, and Otani has nearly a 200 ISO against them. He's also just on fire in
Yeah.
every facet of offense, home runs, stolen bases, like you name it. He's just doing it all. So definitely Otani, definitely Drury. I am not shying away from either Guardians first baseman. I understand it's lefty lefty, and Naylor has not been fantastic against lefties this year, but my God, he has been on fire lately. 460 average over his last 10 games, a lot of multi-hit games over that span, a lot of extra base hits. But Josh Bell is, I'm really, really digging on Josh Bell. He's been notoriously better from the right side. He had an 800 plus OPS last year, nearly a 200 ISO. He's at a 200 ISO again this year against left-handed pitching. He has hits in 6 straight games, RBIs in six straight games. He became a dad, so he has the natural dad buff
Yeah.
that
Dad strength now
just like
activated.
yeah, dad strength activated, comeback since that, and just continued on with the before he left from his significant other giving birth. So I actually love Josh Bell here more than I like Naylor. On FanDuel, you can obviously play them
Yeah.
both. If I'm picking on DraftKings, it's Bell over Naylor, but I'm not shying away from Naylor just because the lefty, because this is a guy in Dermody who lefties hit at a 300 clip at AAA this year.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Again, I don't often like Cleveland, but there are just some matchups and some slates where they're maybe one of the best options on the board, and it feels like that's what we got tonight because I don't really like much else here. I think,
How much does that pain you? How
yeah,
much does
it's
it
not
pain you?
great.
Like,
Again, I think you can play the top half of the Boston lineup. I think Turner's fine just because that team can score runs. But I'm mostly plugging in LA or Cleveland here when it comes to the first base position here. Seeing if we get any other lineup updates coming in, and we'll be sure to bring those to everybody. Second base position, Altuve hitting second. Albie's sixth, Drury again, double position eligibility fourth, McNeil third tonight. Not your usual position where we can just like, oh, Estrada or Mookie Betts. It's got to kind of find a spot to go here. What's your second base take?
I mean, my take is we could just use Brandon
Yeah,
Drury here and play one of the Guardians guys at first. But I actually, so again, I'm gonna go back to the Guardians well here. And I know it's not amongst the guys you mentioned. I just don't have much appetite for any of these other guys. Like I could get to Altuve because he's been kind of good since returning. But it's Andres Jimenez for me. And I mentioned that Zunino had the second best OPS on the team. That's because Andres Jimenez is first against lefties. And this is now a 2-year sample of him hitting lefties. He just needs to figure out what he did last year against righties again. This year against lefties, 475 slug, 886 OPS, 391 WOBA for Andres Jimenez against lefties. I think he's a great play here. And he's $3,500 hitting sixth. There has been signs of life, and granted, it's been largely on the back of 3 big games. He had a 2-hit game, a 4-hit game, and a 3-hit game, and a lot of 0-hit games in between that over his last 10 games. That's why he's basically hit 300 in that span. But what if he gives us the 4-hit game tonight against a guy who has been bad at every stop? He's a 32-year-old who has made 30 relief appearances in his career in the majors, who's never made a major league start and is being stretched out in the minor leagues and has not done a good job at doing so. Like, why should we shy away from a lefty spot here? So I think like the easy answer is to say Brandon Drury 4,100, because then that gives you the luxury of playing all those other first basemen. But I think the best question mark answer is Andres Jimenez. He would be my, truthfully, per dollar best favorite second base play of the day.
Yeah, that's the numbers, like you mentioned, bear it out. We're not in on Dermody here tonight. Don't generally go lefty often, but when the numbers play it, it's a small slate especially. It could be a spot to actually get different because most people will see lefty and shy away from it. So I like that. And Drury's in there for me as well. Again, it's hard to kind of play for the other guys that are on this slate. If you're not going Detmers, like you could play Horner. If you wanted to, Rengifo is down here at $2,200.
Homered and stole a base last night.
Yep. And last year, absolutely hammered left-handed pitching. This year, the numbers aren't as good, but last year we know he was almost a lock against lefties for us. So I do like all of those options at second base. Third base, Devers, Ramirez, Chapman, Riley, Bregman, a pretty decent top-end tier here. You mentioned the power numbers for righties against Verlander here. Riley, one of the more powerful guys on this entire slate. Devers continues to struggle. Ramirez even kind of struggling a little bit, but Cleveland just keep finding their way into my lineups here tonight.
Oh, this is great. I love this stream, honestly. I love this stream. I love this stream so much. Yeah, I mean, look, Devers, I think, is fine. There is obviously some interest in Boston just given what we have on the slate, and they do have a lot of lefties in their lineup. Even though Savali's been good, it's been a very, very small sample this year, so it's not even like we can definitively say this is who he's gonna be. Yeah. I mean, last year against lefties, Aaron Savali allowed a 186 ISO, which is bad. Yeah. Like, it's bad. I mean, that leads us into wanting to play Red Sox because there's so many lefties in this lineup. What, six lefties in this lineup tonight?
And who?
Ref Snyder. Yeah. And no, 3
Arroyo
because Arroyo. Yeah. So five. So actually only 5 lefties. So that's, but still, there are 5
the top of their
best
lineup.
Lefties.
The top 4 of their lineup, right? Of their top 5 is all
4
lefties.
of their top 5, excluding Turner, are lefties. So in a larger sample, lefty power is what gave Savali issues. So like, I could see myself getting to Devers. I think Ramirez is the better of the two, just especially given like your stacks. Like, Jose Ramirez is hitting 3rd in the middle of the arguably the best stack of the day, or one of the best stacks of the day. Riley, 2, I guess maybe my surprise, the Braves are the highest rostered team of the night, expected ownership wise, and that is a recent update. Maybe a lot of people are thinking what we're thinking in terms of like the power against Verlander, and that's going to.
You got to pick an offense against a top team, a top pitcher. It's probably more likely going to be the Braves here, right?
Yep. I mean, there's only 3 teams with like not a lot of ownership tonight. Um, Toronto, Chicago, and the Mets.
Sure.
Those are like the only teams really that I'm seeing not projected to be highly owned. Boston's getting some pretty decent ownership. Teams are as well, but it would probably be Ramirez up here for me. Riley second, Devers third. If I was ranking guys like up in this class up here.
Yeah, that's fine by me. I didn't find there to be a ton of value on this slate. If you wanted to go Urshela against Smiley, you could. I think that's fine. Rengifo has dual positional eligibility. You could also play him there, but I didn't really find myself gravitating towards anybody else here at third base.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you're being contrarian, playing Brett Beatty hitting fifth is probably the only other option other than the 2 Angels that you mentioned. But
Right.
Beatty's also struggling mightily, so
Yeah, he had a pair of 3 strikeout games now going up against Strider here.
the
Probably,
strikeout king.
yeah, probably not going to bode all that well for him. Over at shortstop here tonight, where are you? Where are you tying in?
Can we skip this position? I mean, it's a like Bichette hits righties better. Dansby does have good numbers against lefties. If you want to, if you're not playing Detmers, I don't hate getting to Dansby. He had been playing well. He's taken a few games off here. Just one for his last 11 or 12. Lindor, you're not going to get to.
It's NATO
Pena,
for me. I'll just to jump down
it's
to it. He's $2,900, $2,600. He's hitting ninth, so you have the wraparound connection to that lineup, and he's hitting lefties well on the year. He's got an over 800 OPS. He's got a good batting average. I think it's an over 500 slug against left-handed pitching here. So sure, he doesn't profile as like a big power guy, but get some doubles, just get on base in front of Trout and Ohtani for us, and score some runs at $2,600. So
right.
I agree with you. I wasn't looking to spend up at shortstop here today. I was kind of just plugging in NATO at 26, taking the salary savings and going to outfield. But
Rosario? 787 OPS against lefties, 173 ISO is not too bad.
If I'm
343 WOBA.
Sure. If I'm one-offing though, I think I'm just going to go NATO for the value.
Agreed. I mean, I agree that I think that NATO is like the better play overall. Also, I mean, the Angels make it very tempting to play Strider and Framber together.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can if you play if you played Rengifo, Drury, and NATO together, you can pay for the top 2 pitchers for sure.
Right.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. But also, yes, Rosario, we talked about it. Cleveland stack is going to be probably a popular play. If you go over to Fantasy Farm and check out the applied Vegas run total odds, Cleveland's right there at the top implied team total. So I agree with you. Let's move on over to the outfield here, James. A lot of top names. Who's our go-to outfielder for the evening?
I mean, sticking with like kind of the power theme against Verlander, it'd be hard for me not to go Acuna. Same thing with Yordan. If I had to pick one, Yordan against Berrios, because this lefty thing has been just a continuous issue for Berrios. It's not just this year. This is a long sample. Like when Jose Berrios has been bad against lefties year in, year out. This isn't a 2023 thing. In a year that he's pitching well, he still stinks against lefties. Right. So Yordan is 1A to Acuna 1B to Ohtani 1C. I don't think there's like to Trout 1D, right? There's no like wrong answer. If I had to pick one, it's probably Yordan for against Jose Berrios.
Okay, how about this then? Give me your fade then of this top group.
Of 58 or above?
We'll just go 5K up. 5K up, who's the fade?
Yoshida, just because like not even saying it like Yoshida's arguably has been as good as any of them.
Hitting 400 with 1,000 OPS.
Yeah, he's been as good as anyone, but like I like lefties against Berrios quite a bit.
Sure.
It's not that I think Yoshida is a fade. You're just giving me no options here. Like you're forcing me to pick one.
I'm hamstringing you by the price. I did that intentionally because you would have just said Springer if I said like 4,500 or up.
Yes, correct.
Because we're probably not playing Springer. We're
No.
not going to play Morel. I mean, Nemo's 43 leading off at like tough spot.
Yep.
Seiya against Detmers at 44. I liked Quan, leading off. He's not an exciting player, but he gets on base. He does the job. He can score some runs tonight. He can hit some doubles. I like that. And Duran, more to the wild card play, but could get you 2 stolen bases, could get you a home run and a stolen base, could get you a home run. There's a lot of potential with Duran at 38.
Yeah, I think both those guys are really interesting. Stephen Kwan, coincidentally enough, again, like I said, the lefties aren't maybe as bad as we think against the lefties. Stephen Kwan, 805 OPS against left-handed pitching. Again, no power in this guy's bat, but 385 OBP against left-handed bats. That's, thanks to a 10% walk rate, which is very, very high. He doesn't strike out, but 355 WOBA against left-handed pitching too. So I like Quan, and I do like Jarren Duran. Again, I like the top half of Boston's lineup because there's so many lefties, and that's what gave Savali issues last year. So if you want to get to them, I think that's perfectly fine. And then right below them, the Angels are just really tempting.
Taylor Ward, $3,400. Super cheap.
$3,400 leading off. He's been a lot better of late.
Yeah.
Feels really good. Is he going to be one of the highest owned value plays of the day?
I would probably assume so. I mean, again, we like a lot of what's going on in this game for the Angels here tonight. So, yeah. And on a smaller slate, still like there's just we talk about guys like, this guy's fine. The matchup's okay. On a smaller slate, if Stephen Kwan gets you 7 fantasy points, that might make him one of the top scoring outfielders, right? Yep. Like, this isn't a 13-game slate where there's so much variability. There's going to be a lot of guys in here that maybe won't have the biggest of nights, but rank, scoring-wise, pretty solid because there is good pitching on this slate. And this turns into a pitcher's duel night. And a lot of the pitchers all kind of give you the same production. A guy that can just go out there and get a couple of hits might be the difference maker for you.
Yeah. So Taylor Ward is pretty highly rostered, the 4th highest projected owned outfielder of the day. That's behind Acuna, Ohtani, who has dual position eligibility, and Yordan. So, like, clearly number one.
Yeah, 100% there. What's your value outfielders for today? Again, it's a smaller slate, so there's not obviously a large player pool to kind of go and pick from. Do you like Joe Adell getting called up here against a lefty? We know there's always been projected power with the guy. There's always been considered a good prospect for them, but whenever he gets to the major league level, he just hasn't had it.
He is interesting. I mean, instantly plugging him in 6th is no joke. Like, that's a pretty good lineup spot. Gets a righty. I'm okay with it. I like Marcelo Ozuna as a pivot off Taylor Ward, 3,400, or Rosario, 33. Both those guys have very good numbers against right-handed pitching this year. Tommy Pham, if you're playing contrarian Met stack, he's hit for a lot of power lately, coming off a home run yesterday. Will Brennan has been really, really good for the Guardians. Another guy, lefty, but 412 average with 1,000 OPS over his last 10 games. So I think there's a bunch of value plays. The Adele thing is just, I mean, dude, again.
He's matching again at AAA. Just
dude, again. That's who some people are. And I'm not saying that it's too late for Joe Adell. The guy is still 24 years old. Aaron Judge made his debut at 24 years old. Like, that's, not like too late for the guy. Is it ever going to turn around for him? I don't know. Hitting 6th right now feels like a pretty good spot for him. So I guess
they like the kid. It's just that whenever he's been given the opportunity to play, he just hasn't had it. Last year he hit 224. The year before that he hit 246. His initial introduction to the league, 161. The low batting average is under 300, and low on base percentages under 300. He had 107 strikeouts last season
Right.
and 268 at bats. I mean, like, that's a rough look. You know, right? Like,
It is.
it's not good for a guy that was one of the best prospects in all of baseball for a while. 2019, number 6, 2020, number 3, 2021, number 13, according to Baseball America. And then he gets to the major league level and you just can't make contact. But another season where at the minor league level, he's out there and he's raking 950.
He's Mike Trout. He's Mike Trout.
Yeah, 958 OBS, 593 slugging, 18 home runs in 55 games this year. You know, last year, same thing, 23 homers in 73 games, 289, 592, 934. It's what he does at AAA. It's the PCL, right? Like, is that the problem? He just gets inflated offensive numbers in the PCL, and he comes to LA, which is a pitcher's park, and you just can't hit. But he's hitting 6, so it is an appealing part of their lineup. You know, if you want to go there tonight,
he's getting ownership. He's getting ownership. Like, there's people He's not. It's not a surprise that people are going to him because there's still people that believe in him, and I get it. But
yeah, I agree with you there 100%. All right, let's go to the Grande's Gems Impemba Imprints section of the night. We've done fairly well with that the last couple of evenings here, James. So why don't you lead us off? Give us your home run call of the evening.
My home run call is going to be Josh Bell. I made that on the Better Sports Betting Show right before this. Plus 550 tonight for a home run. I love what he's done against lefties in years past, and this year's been no different. 200 ISO. My top stack, Cleveland. No surprise there. My contrarian stack. It's hard to pick a contrarian stack because I don't want to pick between the Mets, the Cubs, and Toronto. So I'm just going to say my alt stack of the night is the Angels because I'll be pairing. The Angels are the best value stack of the day without a doubt. I know Ohtani and Trout are very expensive, but you have 4 guys in their lineup sub 3K, 5 guys really, including Wallach, that you can like say are quality values on like bigger slates as well. My star of the night is going to be Jose Ramirez. I'm going to stick with the Guardians theme. I think Ramirez breaks out in a big way. And my value play of the night, I'm going to go with Taylor Ward.
Okay. My home run call, I'm going to go Brandon Drury. I'm just going to stick with the Angels here and go there. My top stack, I'm going to go with the Angels here. I think the Angels are going to be my favorite team stack. Not just the value, but they just kind of fit the narrative. For the contrarian stack, I'm going to go with Boston here. I'm going to go with the top half of the Boston Red Sox lineup. You mentioned the lefties in there doing some damage against Savale. They're all right up there. So give me the Red Sox as a contrarian stack. For my value play here of the day, I'm going to go at Reed Detmers, $6,500. Right? Like, why not go pitching here on a slate where maybe people are going to be looking to go up? I know we like Reed Detmers a lot here this evening. And my star of the night, we'll stick it with the Angels here. I like Drury to homer, and I like Reed Detmers as a value play. I think we're going to have the show Ohtani night here again. It's another big night from Ohtani.
Love that. Love that ish.
All right, let's build some lineups for the folks here. We got a couple of minutes left in the show. We are certainly going to go Strider. Did we want to try to double spend given the value that we know that is on the slate, or do we want to go down to Detmers there at 65?
Why don't we do both?
All right, we'll start with Framber, and we'll try to fit this in here. So if we're going Framber, that means we get to go Jan because we're not going to go Detmers here.
Yep.
Feel good? Okay.
Yep.
First base.
So I just plugged, just to get it out of the way, I plugged Rengifo and Nato in just right off the rip because
second and short.
I mean, and
Taylor Ward probably.
And Taylor Ward, and that already gives us north of
$4,100. Josh Bell, you said it first, right?
Yep, Josh Bell.
Okay.
Oh, if you wanted, John, to get Drury, and we could just run the full pack, we could play Rengifo at third, and then play Drury at second.
Okay, yeah, that works. Third, Drury.
48.50 for 2 outfielders. Like, we could reasonably spend up on whoever we wanted and then play somebody else, right? Like,
I just clicked on Ohtani there, seeing what we got.
So run a 5-man Angels. I love
I
that.
forgot we have that already. Let's get off of Ohtani then. Yordan
3,800, and you get Jarren Duran.
Yeah,
as a final piece, unless we wanted to go in a different direction.
No, that's fine by me. So that's our double spend. It can be done, people, tonight.
Angels with Angels.
With Angels. Well, we knew that going into this, right?
Right.
We knew going into it you'd have to use the cheap Angels plays here. We're really only stacking Angels with a bunch of one-offs. So it's Angels stack with Bell, Yordan, Duran, and Yan Gomes in the lineup there to get everybody to sort of fit. I am sure we could probably maneuver a little bit, get off of Yan, maybe go Quan and get some more Cleveland into that lineup. It's for sure doable. Let's clear this out here, and then we'll go back to Strider. And we'll go down to Reed Detmers here and see what we can build out. So I guess we like Wallach then at 29 here, right?
Yep. Wallach would be the pivot for sure.
Okay. First base. What do you want to do? Do you want to try to fit Ohtani here and go that route?
We could, or we stick with the Drury Bell route. I think there's like 3 tiers. We go all the way up to Ohtani, we go to Drury in the mid tier, or we go down to Josh Bell at 2,600.
Let me see here. Third base.
Because like
I use Bell and Drury
in the first lineup. Lineup.
Yeah. As the 1 and 2. Third base, want to go Ramirez? Jose?
Yep.
Okay. Shortstop here. I still think we go Nato. I think there's just values there.
Absolutely.
We have almost 4,800 to play. For 3 outfielders. We liked Ward. I mean, why go away from Ward, right? Leading off in 3,400. And then we have
play Ohtani? Did you want to just play Ohtani?
Did we play Ohtani? Let's see. Play Ohtani. 41. Yeah. Okay. We can get Ohtani in here. $4,100 for an outfielder. What was our all the way spend? Do we have one? You like Brennan?
Yeah, I did like Will Brennan.
$6K. Yordan?
Yeah.
There we go. We got Danger the safety dog in the chat. Detmers and Valdez with Trout and Pena, or Strider and Valdez with Nato and Jake Myers. Detmers and Valdez for me with Trout and Pena. That's how I'm going there.
Yes. I'd also maybe, if you're comfortable with Pena, that's fine. And I'm not like suggesting like move off of him, because Pena does have a 175 ISO against right-handed pitching. Barrios has just been really tough on righty bats, like 097 ISO, 259 WOBA. I agree that is the side, but you could also just kind of toy.
Trout is just the push for me there, right?
Like yes,
because I mean Jake Myers and Nato, they're fine, but what else? What is the rest of your lineup? I guess look like around that.
Well, you could just toy with the Pena thing to like Rosario or Nato and then go up somewhere else, right? Like that could also be like kind of a I'm not we won't read the name that this gentleman or woman.
Over under 7.5 hitter fantasy score tonight. We weren't really in on Toronto tonight. We looked at it. They had a almost non-existent ISO against left-handed pitching. So
Bichette is the only one with anything.
Right. So he's got to do something against a pitcher that isn't really giving up much on an offense that isn't really doing much. So it probably would have to be a one-man show for Bichette. So I would go under the fantasy score tonight for him.
I mean, righties have against Framber this year a 100 ISO, a 256 WOBA. Last year, righties had a 089. So improvements, yay! 089 ISO against Framber, 277 WOBA. So like. It just nobody hits this guy. So I will go with you on that, John, and go under.
Yep. All right, guys, that's it for us here today. We'll be back live tomorrow at 5:00 Eastern, and we'll have the podcast out in the morning, breaking down Friday's big slate that we got going on. Remember to go to fantasy.com/all-pro. Use promo code MLB50 to save 50% off the first 6 months. Just $19.98 for the first 6 months. Get access to everything that we do on site, and you get access to our premium Discord, which James and I will be in there answering your questions up to roster lock. Good night, everybody. Good luck.